So now that I am 136 pages into the blade itself, which is roughly 25% of the way through, it's time for me to set up this video, which is going to be interesting because I don't actually feel like I know what's going on yet. So you heard me correctly, along with the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, I'm also going to be making a series of spoilery vlogs on the First Law universe, which I am currently starting to read through with my book club, Catch Up Book Club. If you guys are unfamiliar with Catch Up Book Club, it's an epic fantasy book club where we read not only full series, actually we read extended universes, so I will put the link up here if you guys are interested in checking us out. But essentially for this series, alongside 90 to 120 minute live shows, you are going to also be getting spoilery videos from me. Now the difference between them is that in these vlogs you are going to get my thoughts essentially hot off the press as I'm reading them, and then in the live shows you are going to get the thoughts of up to 6 people after we've had time to sit on our thoughts and feelings a little bit, and also as we're bouncing off each other within those live discussions. So in this video specifically, or these videos, what you're going to get from me is first and foremost spoilers. So if you have not read this book, then I would recommend clicking out and coming back to me when you have. You are also going to potentially get some reactions depending on the events of the book, and my favorite thing that you're going to get is going to be theories. So what I think is going to happen based on what I'm currently reading. So I guess you can be amazed at my psychic abilities, or you can have a good laugh at me. Now what I really don't want in these, and why I've strayed away from doing videos like this for series like this in the past, is because I don't want people in my comments telling me that I'm wrong or right, actually, because both spoil the experience for me. So if you know that something that I think is coming is wrong because in book 3, like you've read the entire thing and in book 3 something happens that proves me wrong, then please don't tell me, because then it just ruins the authenticity of the entire thing, because I know information that I'm not supposed to. And I know the majority of you guys wouldn't do that, but trust me when I say it's happened in the past, and it's very, very frustrating. So for this first installment, I don't expect my thoughts to be anything groundbreaking. I don't expect to be reacting to a great deal of things, because with high fantasy, epic fantasy, and this one in particular is grimdark, but it has that extended universe which makes it a little bit more expanded. But with series of this nature, I'm not expected to be blown away by book 1. I'm really just finding my feet. I'm learning, I'm absorbing, I'm getting to know the characters and the world, and I'm expecting the payoff and the big moments to be coming a little bit later on. So realistically, this happened with the Wheel of Time one as well. The first video, this video, ain't gonna be the best, but it's gonna lay the groundwork of all of the ones to come. So let's talk about the blade itself, shall we? And I don't know what to say, because I don't know what the plot is. I am really enjoying it, I can say that, but I'm not unfamiliar with a slow-paced story, and in fact, the slower the pace, the better, in my opinion. I can tell you a little bit about the characters right now and how I feel about them, but I don't really know what the overarching plot is going to be. So we are following 3 main character perspectives in here, and this book is already not what I expected it to be, because I thought that these were going to be a band of unlikely heroes, but actually they are 3 very singular individual perspectives, and in the case of 2 of them, we're kind of just following them on their day-to-day lives, while one of them I feel is on a little bit more of a mission. So my favorite of the 3 so far is Logan, I would say, and something that shocked me about this is that there's actually magic in this world, because I was told that there was like the magic was minimal, so I was expecting magic to not even be something that anybody thinks about. But as soon as we start following Logan, we learn that he communicates with spirits, and he also, like, his part of the plot so far is taking him to the first of the Magi, who is somebody who, as far as I can tell, because we don't have a concrete timeline, like I don't know how long ago the historical events in this world happened, but there's somebody immortal here who is the first of the Magi, a historical figure, like a legend, who is still alive, who does perform magic in here. Now I feel like one of the overarching themes of this series is going to be that magic is dying, because we have already established that with the spirits saying that there's like fewer and fewer of them every year, and also the Magi saying that like the magic that he performed where he choked off that guy's air, he said that it was essentially a parlor trick and like his power is waning. So Logan is definitely the most intriguing to me, one because of the path that he's on, and I actually just, so far I like him as a person. I like this kind of tortured warrior vibe where he he has lost anybody that he's ever cared about, and he's quite a desolate, lonely character, but that doesn't make him a bad man necessarily. So our other two perspectives are in the same location, and that is Glocta and Jezzel, and they are very, very different people. And while they're in the same location, while they have crossed paths, their paths at the minute don't really intersect. So Glocta is somebody who used to be the hero. Like, if we were following this 15 years ago, I feel like Glocta would be the hero of the story, because he was a soldier and he was also a fencing champion up until he was captured by an enemy army that tortured him, which has left him with a disability and also dealing with the impact and the result of this torture for the rest of his life, because there's not really a second that goes by where he doesn't have to deal with the damage that was done as he was being tortured. So he is he is an inquisitor, I believe, and he has been recruited by somebody higher up in the government to work to his agenda, and the only reason he's agreed is pretty much because he can't say no. And he is now capturing and torturing influential people that he's being told to capture, because the person above him that's giving him these orders wants a specific person to become part of the council that governs this realm, because the king's ill. So only the people who are left behind to govern while the king is sick are very much feeding their own agendas. So he's given Glocta a list of people that Glocta is capturing and torturing to incriminate other people that his superiors don't want to be in the running for this council seat. And then we have Jezzel, who is our gentleman. He is a fencing champion. He's been sent to, I think we're in Westport. He's been sent to Westport to train under this fencing master to win this competition or tournament and become like the best fencing champion ever. But he has no drive. He has the talent, but he isn't putting any of the work in, and he'd rather spend all of his time drinking. So he's your typical like spoiled, entitled gentleman. So we have three different people in three different places, because even though Glocta and Jezzel are in the same location, the paths are very different. We have Jezzel, who is more in the, I want to say he has more access to the general politics of the world, while Glocta is very much working in the shadows, and then Logan is just off in some other part of the world. So in terms of the overarching plot, I have a feeling that the magic or the lack of magic or the death of magic is going to form a central theme to this series. And I'm thinking, based on the last chapter I read, which is where the Northmen came and said, like, if you don't pick a champion to fight me, then we're gonna go to war. So I feel like the war over England between the Union and the Northmen has a potential to form a significant part of this plot. But yeah, that is where I'm up to a quarter of the way through. I'm really enjoying myself. I didn't expect it to be so funny. I expected it to be grittier than it is, especially with the Westport setting. Think like King's Landing versus Winterfell. I expected Winterfell, but we have like a large element, I guess, of King's Landing in here. So far so good. No idea where the plot's going, but I will keep you informed on my thoughts as it develops. Hello, I've just finished editing for the day, and I thought I'd just give you a brief little check-in on the blade itself. I'm 248 pages into it, hoping ideally to get to around page 350 tonight. I haven't been reading much the last 2 days because I haven't been feeling too great, but I have, while I've been reading, I still have no idea about the plot. I have potentially ideas about the key themes of the plot, but no real like concrete idea of where this series is going right now. But I do want to talk about just a couple of similarities between this and other things that I've noticed or have come to mind while I've been reading. The first is the comparison, I guess, between the Feared, who is the champion that the Northmen sent to Westport, but the similarities between the Feared and the Mountain from Game of Thrones. And also regarding Game of Thrones, there is one chapter, I can't remember the character, but it was right at the beginning of part 2. There is a chapter, it's called What Freedom Looks Like, that is from the perspective of a female character that we haven't had in the book before, who seems to be from a different part of the world and is on the run for some reason. And in that chapter, somebody says that if she goes back to, I think she's from the Empire, then things aren't going to work out well for her. And it reminded me a lot of Cersei and a particular plot line that Cersei has in Game of Thrones. They will catch you and they will break your leg legs with hammers in the city square so you can never run again, and they will parade you through the streets of Shaffa naked, sitting backwards on an ass with your hair shaved off, while the people line in the streets and shout insults at you. Obviously I know that these aren't necessarily like references to Game of Thrones or nods to Game of Thrones. They're just like, a lot of them are popular like medieval setting things, or like popular tropes and archetypes, plot devices, that kind of situation. That's just what my, like, the dots that my brain has been connecting while I've been reading. And the last kind of comparison or like similarities that I picked up on is the perspective of Jezal, who's obnoxious, he's spoiled, he's selfish, and he reminds me a lot of Adolin from the Stormlight Archive, who is my favorite character in the Stormlight Archive. So I actually, wow, my glasses aren't clean, but when are they ever? I actually love that for Jezal, and I hope we have a similar character arc to Adolin. And even the relationship that he has going on with, oh, what's her name? It's not Andy. I want to say it's Andy, but it isn't. Ardy? The relationship with her reminds me of Adolin's character arc or storyline, I guess, in Stormlight as well. So that's where we're at. I don't really have anything else to add right now. My ideas of the plot going forward, I feel like the class issues that we've been seeing with the dissolution of the Mercers Guild, because the like government don't want anybody of like common blood as like the higher ranking members of society. I feel like that is going to kind of underpin this series, especially now that we have West heading up a section of the army for the pending war with the Northmen, which I feel is going to start very soon. I didn't expect that to come in quite so soon, but pretty much I think the last thing I read was where West is promoted essentially because the army needs good officers. I don't know what his official ranking is. I'm not a military girly, I don't know, but essentially he is of common birth and he is going to lead a section of the army in this war. The war with the Northmen, I feel, is going to play a big part in this, although I don't know how the main characters are going to play into it and how they're going to be relevant, because like Loctar's not going to war, Jezal is only going if forced, and Logan is in the north and he wouldn't fight for the Northmen unless he was forced to, and I can't see him coming down to join the Union. And then the other element of the plot we have going on is of course the magic, which I feel like is going to, because it's dying at the minute, so I feel like it must stabilize at some point, because I believe that this series, or I would assume that this series, gets more fantastical as it goes on, especially because like the death of magic or the waning of magic is a problem in this world that we will obviously naturally, I guess, find a solution to. So yeah, those are my ideas going forward, but obviously that's nothing profound, and aside from those, that's all I got. So it has been snowing in the UK recently and it is freezing, and on top of that we went out yesterday and we only got home at like 1 in the morning. So I'm having a very cozy Saturday and potentially hoping to finish the Blade itself, but I'm 362 pages into it. The chapter that I just read was about Pharaoh and she's tried to escape Yulway, potentially is how we would pronounce that, and ended up being caught by two eaters, and then Yulway turns up and kills them. Something that I found particularly interesting about that chapter is the talk of the prophet that Yulway apparently used to know and the eaters now follow, and he points out that they've broken the curse because they broke the second law, which is to eat the flesh of men, and they say that the laws don't apply to them, and then Yulway says the word of Uz governs all, there can be no exceptions. And I'm wondering, because how long ago was it that we had, oh, it's not very long at all, about 20 pages ago we learn about the war between Juvens and Canedius, Canedius is the master maker, and how like Loctar's trying to figure out essentially if Bias is real, and he found out that Bias killed the master maker and locked him potentially in the maker's tower, and that he should have the key. So I feel like we're going to open up that tower at some point, which is super interesting because I didn't predict the story going this way. But I'm wondering if this prophet, because I have no idea who Pharaoh is or why she's a part of this story. I'm actually not very engaged with her perspectives right now because, well, one thing is they tend to be fight scenes, and while the fight scenes in this book aren't the worst I've ever read, they're still you guys know I'm not a biggest fan of a fight scene, so they're not the most compelling things. So I have no idea who she is, why anybody wants her, why she's a part of this story, because she kind of is very separate from everybody else here. But I'm wondering if the prophet that has been mentioned has anything to do with Canedius. I'm wondering if he potentially was never in this tower, because it is very much like, I love this fantasy trope where it's like, oh, these things don't exist, they're myth, they're legend, and it turns out they actually do. So I'm wondering if the prophet is anything to do with Canedius or Juvens. I'm wondering if potentially Yulwei is, like, Bayaz is the first Magi. I'm wondering if Yulwei has any sort of like relevance to that kind of plot, in which potentially he's Juvens, because he said he knew the prophet a long time ago. So this could be me reaching, because like I said, I have no real knowledge at this point of how Pharaoh fits into this story, but potentially this video is about theories. So a theory I guess I just had, I feel like I'm really like defending the potential that this is wrong, because I'm really not sure. But a thought that I had is that potentially Yulwei could be Juvens, and that the prophet could be Canedius. And then of course we have Bayaz, who is currently in the Union and is apparently about to begin a mission to travel the world, but we only really get him from Logan's perspective, and Logan has like flat out said that he doesn't really care what the plan is, he's just along for the ride. So like, yeah, I have no idea like why they're gonna travel the world. I do really like, actually, what's this guy who's just turned up? He's a navigator, and I think he's really funny, especially when you put him in scenes with Logan, because he just never stops talking, and obviously like Logan is a man of few words. Longfoot, brother Longfoot, I'm having a great time with him. So I'm on page 368, which is the start of a Glockter chapter, and I don't know if he's having a dream quite clearly. And are these prophetic dreams, like visions, or like mystical in nature, or is he like just dreaming about the things that he has on his mind? Regardless, we have mentioned of the seed, which is obviously important, but also like this one section is given Wheel of Time, because in his dream he says we're at war, you know, and then the dream version of Archlector Sult says we are indeed. 2 wars, one fought with fire and steel and another one beneath, an old war long years in the making, which is given like Wheel of Time and like the eternal struggle between like good and evil, and also reminding me a little bit of Game of Thrones and also Realm of the Eldlings, in that, you know how you have the surface plot, which is the plot that the characters are actually pursuing, and then you have the plot of the actual series, which is in the background, because as I just mentioned, like, it's myth and legend and people don't believe it. It's one of those frustrating things, you know, when you read fantasy, because I'm now more interested in this background struggle, like I am with Game of Thrones, like I am with Realm of the Eldlings, but the characters obviously are going to be more focused on the present war between the Union and the Northmen, because that is more pressing and they don't actually fully believe that the other thing is an issue. But I'm guessing that the overarching plot of this series is going to be that actual like background war. Also, I feel like the acknowledgement of this old war is kind of reinforcing the theory that I just made. I mean, that could absolutely be wrong, that Yulwei is actually Juvens, etc., but I feel like it kind of reinforces that, because that is a war that happened like hundreds, potentially thousands of years ago, which is potentially the war that is now coming back to the forefront in present day. It is the day of the live show. I have 11 hours. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just hit Brie in the face with the corner of my book. But I have 11 hours to finish the Blade itself. I'm on page 456, so I only have about 60-ish pages left, but a lot happened last night, and I was in bed and I didn't have my camera and I couldn't talk about it. It wasn't like big things that happened that I wanted to have a full discussion about, but it was like little moments that had me shocked. First off, like, Jezal is the son of the king, right? Something's happened there. The kids have been swapped, or like he's a bastard son with another woman. That's what's happened there, right? It's not just like a weird thing that happened because the king isn't very well and he's never very lucid. Like, there's something going on there, right? Also, Western Ardy, I was not expecting that, and I was so disappointed because I really liked West. I thought he was like the stand-up warrior. If we think very different series, but if we're going to do a character archetype, think Kaol from Throne of Glass, who, you know what, he makes some stupid decisions, but he's like the loyal protector, captain of the guard type character. I really thought that that's the character that we were going for with West, and maybe we will, because cycles of abuse are a real thing. So maybe he will turn into that character, but I'm so disappointed. that shocked me, especially like the violence of that scene where he has her pinned against the wall and he just like flies into a rage. We've also been to the house of the maker, which I loved, because my favorite thing, I think I've mentioned my favorite thing about fantasy, is one, Easter egg hunting and looking for foreshadowing, and two, learning about the ancient lost elements of the world, because everyone knows about what's current and what's going on, but it's the stuff that nobody knows about that I want to find out about. So I did really enjoy all of that portion, and I no longer think that the prophet is Canedius, although Baez never said he was dead. He said he fell off the bridge, and everyone else said that his body was buried in the house of the maker with the seed, right? That was the not the prophecy, like the what the scroll said. He might still be alive, but I think that the prophet is, I'm assuming, one of the magi, because we have Baez, we have Yulway, and then is he called Kulel or something? So yeah, I think he's one of the magi, but that's where I'm at with 60 pages to go. I'm very excited to continue. Yesterday morning I did finish the plate itself, and we did also have the live show last night, so I will link that up here for you guys if you want to check it out. Would obviously recommend, because you're getting more than just my thoughts, and also it's more of a discussion format obviously, but I've had some time, I've had over 24 hours to kind of sit on my thoughts with this before I came to wrap up this vlog, because I felt like I just needed, especially because I was trying to finish it as early as possible in the day, so I wasn't going straight from the book into the live show. I needed to some time just for the information to settle, but I gotta say I didn't love the end of this book. I felt like pacing and tone wise it was very, very different from the rest of it, in that we had this like 20-page fight scene with Logan and Pharaoh, it is Pharaoh, right, and the Inquisition, and I gotta say it felt quite tedious to me. It was reminding me a lot of, I guess, what I'm currently reading, which is Second Year of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, where I just hate the action scenes. So I didn't like the way that this ended. I feel like it felt like it was coming to a natural conclusion just before that, but Joe Abercrombie needed to do a little bit more maneuvering. I think, was this his first book? I feel like it potentially could have been, but overall I ended up giving this 4 stars, because while I really, really enjoyed it, and there was one part at the end of this with Glockta and West where they were talking, they were reminiscing on their time in the army together, and they said like, oh, what was that other fellow called? Like, we used to love him, he used to make us all laugh. And the guy that West is talking about is the guy that Glockta tortured, the first person that Glockta tortured in this book. And that it was at that point that I realized that I was actually becoming attached to these characters. But it's very character driven, but it's also very much establishing what's to come. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that there is a plot here, and Joe Abercrombie has made it very clear that there is a plot here, but it's just not in this book. While this is character driven, I think the main benefit and the main takeaway I get from this one book is learning about the politics and the history of the world, which I feel were very well laid out. And I did have a really good time with it generally, in terms of, I love how complex and intricate this world and this series seems to be, or like I feel like promises to be later on. I really liked the characters. I thought that it was funny when I didn't think. I was really, really worried about the humor in here in case I didn't like it. So I did have a really, really good time with this, but it just can't be 5 stars because it's just not a full package to me. That being said, I do think there is a lot of promise for me to give later books in this series 5 stars. So what do I expect from the next book, I guess? I'm very intrigued, because I thought with how this was shaping up and how the end was coming together, I thought we were going to get to that point that I assumed this book was going to be, which is a band of unlikely heroes. I thought we were kind of getting to a point where they were all going to embark on this journey to the edge of the world together. However, that isn't the case. It's almost the case, but Glockta's going south. I'm wondering if they're all going to end up going south, because Baez, Jezal, which is how you apparently say his name, not Jezal, Jezal and Logan are all going to the edge of the world, but I don't feel like, unless I missed it, I don't think it was clear like what direction they're going to get to the edge of the world. So potentially that will put them on the same kind of path as Glockta. I'm also wondering what's going to happen with Ardy, because West asked Glockta to look out for her and he said that he would, but now everybody's leaving. So I feel like there's potential for her to worm her way in on somebody's plans and ending up accompanying someone somewhere, unless she is going to be our point of reference for the Union and our starting location, because nobody else is going to be there. Aside from that, I feel like this is going to be very war driven. How that shapes up though, I'm unsure about, because we do have this war with the Northmen that has been established right here. Then we also have now established a pending war with the South, and I very much thought that the focus of this series was going to be the war with the North, but now I'm wondering if it's actually going to be the war with the South that proves to be the most challenging and the one that we see the most of. But I do know that one of the standalones in this series is called The Heroes, and I think it's like multiple people's accounts of a 3-day battle, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with the war in the North. Once again, don't tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong, in case you're just giving me spoilers. But yeah, a very, very promising start. I really, really enjoyed this, and I am happy. I'm very happy that I did like this. I mean, there wasn't too much doubt in my mind, because the general consensus on this is that the majority of people liked it, but I was just worried, you know, because I've tied myself into a 10-book read along for a series that I potentially may not have liked. So that concludes the spoiler video for The Blade itself. Please let me know down in the comments whether you enjoyed this video. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I do intend to continue and make a video like this for all 10 installments in the first Law universe that are currently published, because I think the last book that has been published isn't the definitive end, like Joe Abercrombie hasn't said that is the final book, so potentially longer. The next live show for Catch Up Book Club is going to be at the beginning to middle of May, so it will be around that time that I pick up Before We Are Hanged. I always want to say Before We Were Hanged because it rolls off the tongue better, but I'm pretty sure it's Before We Are Hanged, so you can expect the next installment in this series round about then. I'm going to try and post them after the live show, just because the live show is the official thing of the book club, so I don't want to like steal my own thunder pretty much, because it's my book club. But yeah, aside from that, guys, don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.